Hi, I think we're going to start now. Welcome. I'm Julie Walters, and I'm the co-founder and the president of the PCDH19 Alliance. I'm so glad that you're all here. I know it takes a lot of sacrifice time-wise and organization and financially to be here for both the presenters and the families. So we're really grateful that you all could be here today. We are going to be hearing from some of the leading researchers and clinicians in PCDH19 research today. You'll also be able to ask any questions that you have after the speakers have completed their presentation. Tomorrow, we'll be hearing from professionals who work directly with families and help people who have disabilities, such as PCDH19, through therapies, education, and genetics. And I wanted to also say that the research is very important, the presenters are very important, but I think what's also very important about being here is that you will not leave here without a lifelong friend. If you're new to PCDH19 or a diagnosis, you will find community here, which is equally important along this journey. We're all in this together. Also, if you are a supporter of the Alliance, know that all the lemonade stands that you've done and all the reaching out to your networks has created everything you see here today. A lot of, if not all of this research has started in some way through funding from the PCDH19 Alliance. So you guys have created all of this for all of our families and for future generations to hopefully find better treatments for PCDH19. I would like to introduce, we had someone else that was going to speak, but I'm going to be introducing Dr. Joseph Sullivan. He is the director of the Pediatric Epilepsy Center at the University of California, San Francisco. And really, really lucky for us, he's also the co-founder and scientific board chair at the PCDH19 Alliance. Dr. Sullivan?
And apparently I can't spell even with the spell check there, so I apologize for that. So I think I know most of you. Hi, my name is Joe Sullivan. Thank you, Julie. Let me do this. So in an effort to preserve your hard work and dollars that are going towards the foundation to support research, we're on a shoestring budget for tech support today. So bear with us. Myself and some other people that have raised their hand to say that they're a little bit tech savvy. We're trying to do this as a webinar. We're going to try to record this so that it can be put up on the Alliance website. But the nice thing about the day, the nice sort of intimate atmosphere is we have time, right? So you're going to, as Julie said, you're going to be hearing from some of the most preeminent researchers in this field from all over the globe. And there's going to be time to ask questions. And so this is really meant to be sort of informal in that regard. We're going to have the presenters introduce themselves rather than the typical, like, this is so-and-so from this and this is all their accomplishments. And that's not certainly to diminish what everyone has done, but just to keep it sort of flowing. So I just have a few intro slides here. So this is our fourth biennial, see, I spelled it right there. Biennial Bay event. As we all know, the pandemic kind of got in the way of things, and it's hard to believe that it was 2018, right, since we were all last together in person. We had high hopes of holding it in 2022 when there was a brief pause, or I don't know what we were calling it back then. But because of a surge and things, there were some rules that UCSF had that was just going to make it challenging. But the researchers still got together in a very smaller room than this and shared sort of an update at that time. And again, thank you to the families and to the presenters that are here today. Julie already highlighted the importance of advocacy groups. I mean, as a pediatric epileptologist, there's a lot of funding that is happening from the NIH, but really what I think gets things started and allows some of the researchers that you're going to hear from today to gather preliminary evidence to then submit a larger grant to further their work is through patient advocacy groups like the Alliance. And it really, I think we owe a lot of what you're going to hear about today to the Alliance's efforts. I know there's a lot of exciting things going on in pediatric epilepsy now in gene therapy. And Dravet syndrome is another condition that is something that I'm very interested in. and they also have a very strong patient advocacy group. And I think there's a lot of times comparisons to Dravet syndrome and SCN1A because there seems to be a lot more visibility and maybe a lot more research out there. I just pulled this 5 days ago in terms of this is a PubMed search in terms of the number of papers that have been published, from, you can see on the x-axis there, from 1991 for SCN1A, but more recently, obviously, for PCDH19, since it's a more recently discovered gene in 2001. And I wasn't trying to make the axes the same there, but just to show you the peak, right? So 156, and the peak for PCDH19 is 31. However, if you go back and look, where was SCN1A 31? It's actually a very similar scale. So maybe things are a little bit behind, but the gene was discovered a lot longer ago. So I think it still is one of the most commonly studied genetic epilepsies, which I think should be exciting for us because hopefully that's going to lead to some better therapies. I think what we've also seen in the last sort of 6 or 7 years in our clinical practice is no longer are there barriers to getting this. I shouldn't say there's no longer barriers. The barriers are reduced to getting this diagnosis. There are many parents in the audience who have teenagers that maybe got a diagnosis much later. And even now, if someone isn't suspecting the diagnosis, right, it's fairly standard of care for pediatric neurologists to order genetic testing. And so therefore, I think people are getting diagnosed earlier. And I hope that that's going to allow us to have some better treatment interventions. And so you can see here, this is a paper that was done out of 10,000 gene panels that were done. And you can see that PCDH19, what is that, 1, 2, 3, it's like the 6th most common epilepsy gene that was found in this study. So these gene therapies are becoming a reality, and I'm not trying to send out too much optimism here in this sense, but things are moving forward very quickly. We know that we have 2 gene therapies for sickle cell anemia that were just approved late last year. There are 2 clinical trials for gene therapies in Dravet syndrome that are underway. And I think today we might hear what may be possible, what may not be possible with regard to gene therapies for PCDH19. So with that background, here is sort of the agenda, and you'll see that there's a lot of opportunity for questions and answers. As a clinician, I'll say that some of this science is going to be over my head, so don't feel badly about asking a question. There's no stupid question. Some of us in the audience may try to help answer the question if it's asked of a scientist and they don't have the clinical or vice versa. So again, please let's make this as interactive as possible. There's a lot of breaks built in, so families can get to meet each other, and then there's a reception at the end of this long day. And then tomorrow there'll be a shorter day, which is going in to some more of the day-to-day, more practical things that certainly patients and families are facing. So again, thank you for coming.